This is the Black TV Show podcast hosted by Miriam Temeskin. Welcome back to the podcast. This is episode 69, The Cosby Show Season 3, episode 21, I Know That You Know. This episode aired March 19, 1987. The synopsis of this episode is Sondra and Elvin announce their engagement, plus Theo plays practical jokes on the family. We start with Rudy is in the living room and Theo comes in with this bag that he got in the mail. It's called Bag Old Gags. I said that so wrong, so I apologize. And it has all these things that you could play tricks on people. And first of all, Rudy was like, "Can I have this?" And he was like, "No, it's my gift, or I guess my package, so I'm keeping it." So there is like an ice cube with a fly in it, so you put it in someone's drink and they think there's a fly in their drink. So it's basically a practical jokes bag. That's what it is. It tricks people. And he has a joint buzzer, which I didn't understand because it seems like it's a thing that you shock people with based on how they react, but I don't know if it's just like because Rudy jumped up when he tricked her to use that joint buzzer. And then there's a gum that tastes like dirt, which how do you know what dirt tastes like? I wouldn't know. So he decides to trick Vanessa, and because Vanessa comes down, she's like, "I need help with algebra homework," and so he's like, "Oh, you should try this gum. It's so good." And she tries it, and she's like, "Oh no, it tastes like dirt." And I'm like, "How do you know it tastes like dirt? Like, what does dirt taste like?" Because if it's bad, you just say, "It tastes horrible." You know, that's what I would have said. But clearly she has tasted dirt before. Clearly. We realize that. And so Theo was like, "Oh, we should play a trick on Claire." And so they go into the kitchen where she's there cooking up a storm, I guess, in terms of the kitchen. And Theo gives her a lot of compliments, saying, you know, she's a great mother, and he can't wait for her being a mother, constantly being a great mother for the years on. And he gives her a handshake and uses the joint buzzer, and she's like it seems like it shocks people, but I don't know why it's called the joint buzzer. Not sure. And she's like, "Oh wow, you guys have really got me there." And Claire was like, "We should do this on your dad." And Rudy was like, "Yeah, we can." And Rudy suggested that he tries the dirt gum. Is that what they call it? The gum that tastes like dirt, basically. And so Claire asked Cliff to come down, and Claire was like, "The gum is perfect." And so when he comes down, he was like, "Oh, what's up?" And Claire was like, "Oh, I just wanted to know if you want fish for dinner." And he looks around, and he's like, "Why did you call me down to ask about that?" Because I guess I feel like he's like all dads, where they're not picky about what they're eating, especially with the weird things he's created in the past episodes. He can eat anything. So I guess he was just shocked that why was I called down for just this simple question. And so Cliff says, "It's fine with me, I'm good." And so Theo was like, "Oh, you should try this gum. It tastes really good." And so Cliff only takes half of it and tries to give it to Theo and Rudy, and they're like, "No, we already have some." And then he tries to give it to Vanessa, and Vanessa's like, "Oh, I tried it earlier. It tastes really good." And then he gives it to Claire, but she puts it in her pocket. So he kind of figured out what's going on. He knows that there's a joke happening. But he slowly, he opens the thing and slowly puts it around his mouth. And then he's like, "Ha, ha, ha. You can't trick me here." So he was wondering, what is it? Is it hot pepper? It tastes like hot peppers. Does it make your mouth change a different color? And then they tell him it tastes like dirt. And so Cliff says, "You can't fool me. We had these when I was your age." And so he tells them, "You guys cannot fool me." And then at that moment, he fools them by pretending that there's something outside the window, and everyone runs to the window. And so it's later on, and Sondra and Elvin come home. They're coming home from Princeton, and they're ready to say something, but they're not ready yet until both Cliff and Claire are there. And they want to tell some good news because Claire was like, is it, like, she says hello to them. She's like, is it good news or bad news? And she was like, Sondra was like, it's good news. And Claire was like, okay, fine, we can wait for Cliff. And then finally she's like, no, I can't. I need to know now. And Sondra and Elvin says, we are engaged to be married. Yay! After all the issues we've gone through for the last couple of seasons, they are officially engaged. And so Claire is so happy. And Claire is going to call Elvin's mom. So she goes and calls her. And Vanessa and Rudy come down and they find out. They're like so happy. And Rudy even tricks Elvin by using that joy buzzer. And like, he gets shocked from that. And he's like, you got me right there. And Theo comes down and he's happy that they're getting married. But then Theo finds out that Cliff does not know about the engagement. That is one thing that he doesn't know that everyone else knows. And they're like, yeah, we should play a trick on them. And at first Claire was like, I don't know if we should. This is such a like important part of our like family, an important time for our family. I don't think we should use this. And then she was like, wait a minute. I think we should, you know? And so Theo says, let's do it. So we finish Act 1 and we go into Act 2. And Claire asked Cliff to get a stapler from his office because she couldn't find hers. And so he goes down and Claire calls Elvin from the kitchen, says, like, you need to go to the office now to talk to him alone. So Elvin goes into Dr. Huxtable's office and shows Cliff his ring. And at first Cliff was like, oh, who's this ring for? Like, he was checking it out, like using a magnified glass. And Elvin says, I want to propose to your daughter. I just need your blessing. And Cliff says, yeah, I'll give you my blessings for the engagement. And Elvin points out that now I have to get Mrs. Huxtable's blessing. I have said some stupid things in the past about men being better than women. And Cliff was like, yeah, I agree with you. And Elvin says, I'm scared to ask Claire for her blessing. And Elvin tells Cliff to talk to Claire to get her blessing because he has so much wisdom. He knows her really well. And so he was like, yeah, Cliff says, I'll handle it. Don't worry. I got her, right? And so we're back in the kitchen and Sondra comes to Claire and asks, can she wear her wedding dress for her wedding? And Claire is so happy, my baby, you know, like, that's literally what Claire does a lot when she's so happy about her kids. And so Elvin comes in and says that he talked to Cliff and Cliff says he can handle Claire. And Claire is like, oh, okay, we will see about that. I will. And so she goes into the living room and the music for this episode is so different from any other episode. It's like a very like high pitch, like you can tell this is a joke episode in a way, like based on the tone of the music. So it's cool to see how the music that they use in the background is a bit different than the usual episodes. But it makes the episode a really good episode. And Claire is in the living room and Cliff brings a stapler to her and she just puts it on the mantle because I guess she doesn't need the stapler anymore. And so Cliff gives Claire a foot rub. And so Cliff brings up Elvin if he ever decides to get engaged with Sondra. And all of a sudden Claire was like, never, they will never get married. Not when I'm alive, not when I'm dead. You know, I've been waiting for Sondra to dump Elvin and basically be with someone else. And like she says, I've been waiting my whole life. And Cliff was like, you haven't been waiting your whole life. And she's like, it feels like it. And so Claire leaves and Elvin comes downstairs, which is so weird. Like it's just like a loop basically here. So Claire leaves into the kitchen. Elvin comes down the stairs and so just checks up like, what should we do? And Cliff suggests maybe you guys should elope because Claire is it's not working with Claire. Cliff says he needs more time with Claire, and Elvin's like, I don't have enough time. He basically wants to propose tonight, and he thought Cliff knew Claire well. So Elvin says, like, tonight he will propose to Sondra without Claire's blessing. And Cliff says, I don't think you should do that. And so Cliff asks Elvin what his thoughts about women. And Elvin says, women are equal to men. And Cliff takes, and he says a bunch of other things that, you know, you could be doctors, you can be astronauts by yourself without a man being there. And so then he decides to take Elvin to the kitchen to tell Claire about his thoughts about men being equal to women. And then, you know, you can tell that Claire is joking. She's just keeping her composure. And she's like, oh, thank you, Elvin. And Elvin leaves. And Claire points out that she's amazed that he can lie to her face like that. He is a big fake. And Claire says she will be throwing Elvin out and he will forget the address if he decides to propose to her, basically. And so we cut to later on in the afternoon. I could tell this whole episode is based in one day, which I like. I like when episodes are like a one day or a overnight episode and you're just stuck in the house kind of thing. I love that kind of episodes. I don't like that in real life where you're like stuck at home all day. You know, that's what we had to do during the pandemic. But when they make episodes like that, I really like them. They're really enjoyable. So it's later in the day and Sondra is on the phone with Denise. So we find out that Denise is on campus. So it was weird to me because when I was looking up the information about this episode, it said Lisa Bonet didn't appear. So I was watching it and I was like, yeah, this seems very weird. So I'm not sure why Sondra and Elvin were home but not Denise. Like, because like if you're coming home, wouldn't you have the same breaks? I'm not sure. Of course, this might be the weekend. Well, yeah, it has to be the weekend because all the kids are home from school. But I'm surprised that, you know, for such a news like this, Sondra should have told Denise to come home. But she calls her on the phone and she tells Denise that she wants her as her maid of honor. And Denise is so happy. She screams in her dorm that, you know, my sister is getting married. And Sondra... So then Vanessa asked Sondra, like, are you guys going to have a big wedding? And she was like, yeah, if our parents allowed to. So basically she's saying the parents are paying for this wedding. By the way, we'll never actually see the wedding, which is crazy to me because you think that would have been like a big season finale for this season. The season finale has to do with Hillman because I believe the reason why they did it is because for the spin-off show, A Different World would be based in Hillman. But it was crazy to me that there was never like an episode about the wedding. We just jumped to season 4 where the first episode is based on after their honeymoon. So I don't know. It was weird to me that they never did an actual wedding. Like there was, even just in the series of The Cosby Show, there was no actual proper wedding, I would say, because there is a scene later on in a different season where they do a makeshift wedding, I guess, but not a proper one. Claire comes down and says that Cliff went to the hospital and he was so pathetic when he left. He was begging her for her permission. And so while they're all talking, Cliff comes home from in the side of the kitchen, which is like such convenience for him. Like, why does, you know what I mean? Like sometimes they come from the front door, sometimes they come from the back door. Why is it always different? Why don't they just always come through the same door? You know what I mean? I know the garage is in the back, but it's weird. But he overhears their plan of them tricking him. And they're also making fun of him. And he's like, I will get them. You know, no one can trick me, basically. You know, I know everything. And it's nighttime, so they just finished dinner, and Cliff says he's going to walk his food off because he feels full and not have desserts. And Theo's like, no, you can't. You have to. Dessert isn't the same without you. You have to stay. And he's like, okay, fine. He's just trying to get away because he's like, I know what's the plan, basically. He knows, okay? So Elvin stands up and he says he has something to say. And Cliff tells Elvin to sit down and shut up, which is such a rude thing to say. And it was weird for me to hear that on like a kid show like that. Because when I was a kid, I was told that shut up is a bad word. Like it's kind of like a swear word or a curse word if you're American. And it's just like, and he said it multiple times. He even said it to Claire, which is like, the one time Claire is so like submissive in a way, because usually she's the one like, no, you do not deal with me. But in this case, Cliff is like in charge. He's just like, no, I don't want to deal with your crap, basically. And so Cliff stands up and gets mad at Elvin, and everyone is just shocked. Like, he's just yelling at Elvin, like, you don't deserve Sondra. And as I said, Claire tries to interrupt, but he says shut up to her. And Cliff tries to kick Elvin out because you know why? He got him. And everyone was like, oh no, you knew what happened, like the trick. And so everyone's just like, oh no. And so Cliff tells Elvin to propose to Sondra, and he proposes to her by giving her the ring and says, would you marry me? And she says yes, and everyone is happy. Claire says, welcome to the family. And Elvin was like, no hard feelings, and she gives Cliff a handshake, and he tricks him with that joint buzzer, and finally they got him, and we end the episode right there. This is a fun episode, I would say. It kept the laughter going throughout the episode. As I said, I like these kind of episodes where they're just in the house and it's within just a day, because sometimes these episodes go over a week span, a couple days span, but this was all in the same day, and I like these episodes. They're fun, and it just kept you going from one character to another character. It wasn't just based on one character at all times. I feel like all these characters, including our guest star Jeffrey Owens, it gave everyone equal amount of lines. I feel like it just, you know what I mean? It was just a content, like it wasn't based on just one person storyline. It was based on everyone in the family. So I like this episode. And as I said, the one guest star for this episode was Jeffrey Owens. And as I said before, Lisa Bonet did not appear in this episode. So the lesson for this episode is, when planning a joke, make sure to do this in a private place. We learned by this, because if they had done this somewhere else where they're not home, Cliff might not know about the joke, and they would have been a great joke on him, but they decided to do it in a public area of the house. So next time when you do that, do it in a private area so no one can hear you. And the question I have for you is, what kind of jokes have you pulled on your family members? I want to hear using the hashtag #IKNOW at Twitter and Instagram at Black TV Shows Pod. If you're enjoying the podcast and listening on Apple Podcasts, make sure to leave a 5-star rating and review. It will help this podcast go up in the charts. I want to get more listeners to listen to this podcast, so it would be amazing if you guys leave that 5-star review. So the next episode is episode 70, The Cosby Show Season 3, episode 22, The Anesthesia... Sorry, I said it wrong. Anesthesia Flu. I said that wrong. I said that one wrong. I believe it's based on just the influenza flu. So they just changed the name of the name of the flu. So that is the next episode, and I will see you all on the next one.